Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Hello friends, and welcome back to another weekly wrap up here at the Book Refuge. And today I have 6 different stories to talk to you about, and I am excited to do so if the light decides to cooperate with me, and it looks like it's not, so hold on. Here we go. Okay, well, yeah, it was a pretty busy week for me. So I'm happy I still got through 6 things to talk about today. I feel like I was really prepared for last week because of like pre-filming some things, and with the San Mariano vlog that I had, which thank you to those of you who've watched that. I know not everyone will have read the book yet, so that's going to be a video that just sits there until people have the time to get to it. And there'll be people who also aren't interested because her books are totally crazy. But those of you who have watched it, thank you for your feedback on it and for coming along on the journey with me with it. It's been really fun seeing people's reactions to it as they get to it and if they've guessed the things that I've guessed along the way and everything. But it was just really fun. What else? There's been some fun announcements in the Heated Rivalry universe. You know, I don't make dedicated videos to that because I'm not like a, TV casting channel or things, but it is really exciting to know that who Troy and Harris finally are, because obviously those people have been cast for a while, I'd assume. And we also got the confirmation from Dylan, I can't remember his last name, but the guy playing Shane's dad, that they're filming 12 episodes, which is seasons 2 and 3 back to back. I still think it's probably all the long game. Like, I don't think they're really doing Unrivaled stuff. This is just my theory on it. I think that it's the long game, and if you've read the books, you know that the long game and stuff happening in it is kind of taking place in the background of the other books. And we wondered how much of the other couples we would get if the series was focused on Shane and Ilya. And I'm only using air quotes because that is what Jacob Tierney has said, that the show would be focused on Shane and Ilya, which I know we all want. Like, we want their love story in there. But we also know from Jacob Tierney which other couples he likes the most. And they also put out casting calls. Sorry, not all of you may know this. You can skip ahead. I'll put a timestamp in when I get to the recaps. But my weekly wrap-ups have been, ever since I watched Heated Rivalry, my time to like gush about this stuff. And so I just want to gush a little bit at the beginning because I'm not going to do a dedicated video to this. But we know that they are casting the other couples in this show because they put out the casting calls for these. And the only person who wasn't listed as someone they needed to cast for was Troy, which now that the people have been like that, Troy and Harris, Charlie is the guy playing Troy and Justice Smith is going to be playing Harris. I'll circle back around to that in a second, because I have a couple things to say, but not a ton, because in general I really trust Jacob, but I'll come back around to it because I do have some things to say. But it sounds like Charlie was probably in mind for Troy for Jacob maybe for a while, just because again there wasn't a casting call put out for him. For the other like main guys there is, well, also not for Kyle, because I'm pretty sure they're keeping the Kyle that they had in the Skip episode. I don't think they're going to recast him. I think he's locked in to get to be Kyle, but they put out a casting call for Eric, for Harris, for I forgot their names. I just read them. I love them. But why they just go Ryan, and for Fabian. So all of those, they also put out for mental health professional and for the douchebag Dallas Kent. Like, there was casting calls out for them. So, and even I think Hayden's kids, though I didn't see those casting calls, but I know they're like casting Hayden's kids too. So, all of those are characters that are going to exist in this. So that gives us a pretty good idea they're going to do that. And though Jacob insisted that season 2 would only be 6 episodes, that didn't mean that it would cover the whole of the long game. That was just us assuming that he would do that. What it sounds like is that the story's still going to be mostly focused on Shane and Ilya, but maybe we'll be getting, it also covers a long time. Well, okay, what am I even saying? I've put out my theories about this in other videos, so I don't mean to do this, but it's just been spinning in my head since these little pieces of information are all getting dropped now because they're back at set, because in the last 10 days there's been, the pics of Hudson and Connor obviously are probably, back living very close to each other, if not in the same building like they were before. Who knows? I don't want to know where they're living. That's none of my business, but they definitely are going to the gym together again because they're in their gym bros outfits and getting their coffees together and going to Canadian Tire together and blowing up the internet together, right? So, filming is obviously starting now. So these things that we feel like are new information obviously have been in the works, right? Also, Rachel finished writing Unrivaled. And so that had people saying like, oh, well, does season 2 and 3 mean like, did Jacob already know all about it? And this filming 12 episodes, are they filming the long game and Unrivaled? And I don't personally think so. I think they are splitting the long game into 2 seasons because there's so much going on. And if you did continue reading the series after, which again, I've shared this, I've only read now, I read Tough Guy because you guys, it still isn't out yet because we like pre-filmed these episodes, but I am in a podcast with Long Game, a Heated Rivalry podcast. My friends, I recorded these with my friend Declan. They'll be coming out eventually when they finish their episodes on Heated Rivalry. My episodes with Declan will be dropping. So I've read Tough Guy now, which doesn't really have Shane and Ilya in it at all. So maybe Ryan and Fabian are only going to show up briefly, and they won't be, because I think even in the, it says even in the casting call, there's this thing in there that says like possibly we'll have an option in there, which I don't fully know all the industry speak, but they may only be in one episode or so. Like they may only they may not be being cast for as much, but I know that Troy and Harris are very important to like stuff in the long game, besides them having their own book, whereas if he's sticking to Shane and Ilya's story, Ryan and Fabian, though their story is really good, like I'm not discounting them. I really liked their story. I enjoyed reading it, and I think, once the episodes of that podcast is out and I'm able to share it with you, you'll see like there's so much in there. But it doesn't have as much to do with Shane and Ilya as like Skips do, or like Troy, like he's gonna be, and Harris is so important to Ilya. Like they're who they are is very important to the lore of at least Ilya for sure in his journey and like being a friend to him later on. So introducing them at some point and getting to watch them be friends is going to be very important. Like we've seen Shane and Ilya be very alone in the first season. Like it's very this big secret they're keeping. In the long game, it's in the title of it too, right? It's the long game, and like how do you sustain this relationship for a long time? Like you have to eventually let other people in, right? Anyway, back to what my theory is like I think that the long game story is going to bring in those other book stories, and it's going to be split into 2 seasons. I think there will then be maybe because then here's the thing, they have some time then. If they film 2 seasons worth, they can drop those over the next 2 years. It gives Connor and Hudson and everyone else involved time to do other projects before they have to be back to film a 4th season. And it gives time to, wherever, also time for them to age a little bit too and do other things before we'd have to do whatever story will be in Unrivaled, right? So that's kind of my guess, is that that's the reason why. And I think it's so good too, because I did not want all the story in the long game to only be in 1 season, even though I know that Jacob could do it. Also, just different people in the, how do I word this? Different people who are like, I don't want to call them gossip people, but different theory people that I watch who I know have interviewed people involved with the show, but they're not technically involved with the show, but they're good secret keepers. They've been the ones hinting that the long game would be split. They've just been like, I don't know, maybe we'll find out. And so when like Dylan dropped this, that it's going to be 12 episodes, and it was dropped on Cameo, which if you've watched or read the long, if you've read the long game, it's no accident. Like, he didn't just drop that on accident. Like, Dylan is a professional. They absolutely told him he could say that. It had already been kind of hinted they would be filming season 2. Like, again, these things were already hinted at. He just was the one who, on Cameo, actually said, I think we're filming 12 episodes. Like, they're filming 2 seasons worth. And then that means it is more budget friendly, which we know they're all about doing. They'll have Connor and Hudson. That is also why we heard they were having such a long time for filming this time too. You know, where in the past they did it, you know, last year they did it in 5 weeks, which is insane anyway. And they're filming, I think, from like August to December. Maybe I'm making that up, but I believe they're filming for a really long time this time. If they're getting 12 episodes worth, that's like a 2027 season and a 2028 season possibly. And then if they wouldn't film until like the summer of 2028 again for Unrivaled, which again, Unrivaled won't even come out. And anyway, I'm just rambling through all these things. I know there are different answers to these. Of course, Rachel can give it to Jacob at whenever. She can give Unrivaled to him whenever. But I think it'll be great too, because we're going to get season 2 of it. Then we're going to get Unrivaled. Then we're going to get season 3 of it. And then there'll still be plenty of time for Connor and Hudson to be working on other projects and have some time, them mature a little bit. I already think they're very mature. I'm not saying that, but I mean literally age a little bit, because they played younger than themselves. Now they're actually like got up to the point where they were like playing the age themselves. Now they can kind of like, they can be playing themselves at the age again by the time they come back to Shane and Ilya in a couple years maybe. And people saying they'll be too big to be Shane and Ilya again, I don't believe that for a second. Don't believe that. That's crazy. Especially the type of artists that they are. Imagine like the challenge getting to play these men at different points in their lives and in different challenges. Like, they're not the type of men in the way they've talked about these experiences that they would get too big to be Shane and Ilya. Like, that's insane. That's literally insane to think that about it. I don't think that would happen at all. So anyway, like I said, I just had to gush about that for 15 minutes or so because it's so cool. There's so many exciting things. And it's also wild to me because, of course, last December when this is ending, we can't imagine how long it was going to be until 2027 to be getting more of it. But like, look at this. It's August already. And there's so much in my life. Like this week, like I said, I was helping my friend in her classroom get ready for school this year. I know I've talked about this a ton and people are tired of it. My friend's also about to have like a baby, like, which is crazy. The same time that I was starting to talk about Heated Rivalry, you guys wouldn't know this, but my friend was telling me that her and her husband were going to try to have a baby. And now the fact that, like, I don't know, it's just a weird thing in your life, right? Like literally last Thanksgiving, my friend was saying like, yeah, I think me and my husband were going to try to have a baby next year. And then they literally got pregnant like right away. And like they're having a baby before the next season of Heated Rivalry will be out. Anyway, that's just a weird thing in my head of like how life can go so fast. And so we think things take so long and we just want stuff to come so quickly. And then I'm also like, I'm going to be a whole year older by the time that comes. Do I want it to come that fast? You know, we can just enjoy things as they come for us. Okay. All right. I totally meant also to welcome a new channel member. So sorry for this shout out being so far into the episode, Tatiana. Okay. Tatiana, welcome to my channel. Thank you for supporting me after that crazy rant. You know, you guys get me on my Heated Rivalry self and I can't help it, but thank you so much for becoming a channel member. we all know how difficult these times are, and your crazy book refuge girl here, she definitely needs it. So thank you so much. So happy to have you. All right, let's get into these books. Let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing that I did was actually a reread of a romance by Tal Bauer called Enemies of the State. And this one was one of the first that I read by him. This is the thing too, I was trying to remember, I believe this is the first one that I read, and I think it was recommended by a viewer in my viewer recommendation form, like way back when. I was trying to remember. It was one of the first ones recommended. And as always, when Tal Bauer gets brought up, I freaking love Tal Bauer. So, but yeah, I actually annotated this one this time. One of my patrons requested this whole series. So you guys know, it was probably just a couple weeks ago that I had done Night Of. And that was funny to me because I hadn't read Night Of before, but The Night Of, which is a suspense about the president supposedly unaliving himself, and the head of the Secret Service is like on patrol at Camp David when the president does this and nobody sees it happen. And so then the vice president, who now becomes the acting president, asked the head of the Secret Service to look into this because he doesn't think that it was what it appeared. And they uncover kind of a conspiracy. And the thing is then that one was a romance between the new president, who was the vice president, but he's now the new president, and the head of the Secret Service. And that was really good. I hadn't read that one before, but it was reminding me of this because it had been 4 years since I read this, and I have read books 1 and 2, but I haven't read book 3 in this series. So that'll be interesting because, again, I'm going to be rereading and annotating this whole series for one of my patrons. I'll talk about it in just a second. Sorry. But it was funny because when I was reading The Night Of, I kept thinking that I was merging these two series, but that one's a standalone suspense mystery, really, of like who killed the president. Fascinating. Really enjoyed that one, by the way. Like, really like that. So yeah, this one though is the president is Jack, and he's a widow. His wife died of, like, I think she had cancer or whatever. And this was actually cool too because both characters are in their 40s in this one, which of course makes sense because Jack's the president. And then we have Ethan, who is his head of security, head of the Secret Service security, as it were. And he's been the head of the Secret Service for 3 different presidents, right? Because they don't change with each person. So he's been doing this a long time. I can't talk, sorry. So, military guy, loves his job, but he is a gay man, and a few of his, like, colleagues know. So this is the way that Tal always starts this book too, is it says a few years in the future. So you're just supposed to assume that everyone would be okay with this. So it isn't a secret that Ethan is, at least among, like, the men, like, that he works with and stuff. So that part of it's out of the way. But then with Jack, again, his wife's been dead for 15 years, and he's only in his, like, mid 40s, I think. So it's like he's supposed to have been a widow since he was 30, basically, and he's been celibate since then. So that's something to note as well. And what I thought was really interesting is that when it gets talked about, when his sexuality gets brought up, he discusses with Ethan that he deeply loved his wife. He never was unsatisfied with her, but he hasn't looked at anyone, man or woman, as attractive since his wife. And so I really think it's not explicitly said because it's these two men in their 40s. They're not really discussing their, and obviously Ethan's more in touch with his sexuality than Jack is because he is someone who goes and picks up guys when he wants them, when he has his time off. He has to go to a gay bar, pick up a guy, fuck if he wants to, get back to his job. So he's obviously a bit more aware of the scene and what's happening than not, but he's still more of a, midlife gay. So he's also not like up with the terms either. I don't know. It was an interesting like setting for that as well. But it was also just really cool how it was talked about in here, because it appears that like when they start talking through those things, because Jack is being really clear, because Ethan is like, we're already in a very risky situation. This is forbidden if this wasn't a same-sex relationship, like this is forbidden for a bodyguard to fall for their principal, plus make this Secret Service and the president, plus make this a same-sex situation. Like, we are risking a lot. He's like, you could get blackmailed if anyone finds out. You could, like, all of these things are risky. On top of all that, I don't want to be the curiosity of a straight man who is having a midlife crisis. Like, that's also on top of that, because Ethan, the more time he spends protecting him, the more he's falling for him too. Because this story is kind of starting where Jack is like newly elected. Like, it's kind of starting, we're kind of coming into the story where they've been protecting him since he was elected, but I think it's kind of like February of his, like, the beginning of his term or whatever. I think that's where we're at. I don't know, but anyway, because Jack is still getting used to how heavy the protection is kind of the point. Like, he just wants to go running on his own, like go work out on his own, and he just feels having these men, it feels like they're just stalking him all the time, when it's like, no, they're your protection. But anyway, back to my point. I really liked how the discussions were handled, and it really sounded like he was possibly like demisexual is what the conversations were having, where he was like, when I fell in love with my wife, I didn't have any problem being attracted to her. I was completely into her. I was attracted to her our whole marriage. There was, again, he was like, I was never unsatisfied, any of those things. And he's like, but as he spends time with Ethan, he becomes very attracted to him. And that's, that grows between the two of them. But anyway, as they're working through their feelings, then of course the political plot picks up. And so, yes, this series, I immediately am remembering, this is very heavily political. And I will say, reading this series at this time, I mean, I feel like saying that though, to be honest, it would feel that way at any time, because there's never a time where politics don't just make it feel gross. So not that this book felt gross. No, that's not what I mean. But I just mean, the older I get and I read books like this, I remember when I was a kid and my dad was reading political thrillers. He read tons of those when I was young. And thinking like, oh my gosh, why are you reading these? And like, I understand a bit more now, where I'm like, these are all cyclical. The same issues come up. It's the same party. Like, I don't mean parties as in the parties. I mean, it's the same groups of people and the same conspiracies and the same troublesome actors every time. So in some ways it feels like, a ghost walking over your grave when you read the book. And also you're like, well, of course, that's why Tal chose these certain people to be the baddies, because that's who always is. So that's kind of the mixed bag of this. Like I said, I'm interested to continue a reread with this, because I think when I read the series, I don't know that the third one was even out, maybe, or I just had like run out of steam for it at the time. So we'll see. But yeah, I read Enemies of the State, reread it. I stuck with my rating, which was 3.5 stars back then, and it's like a 2 on the spice scale. But I'm excited to keep rereading, because I never finished this series before. And I mean, the shining star of it is always the romance. I mean, the political part of it is what it's tough to wade through, because I just don't really care for the political intrigue. I don't read politically themed romances, like actual political thing. It's one thing where like the romance you're reading has themes of the things we're going through now, and what's the word I'm looking for? And issues that we're dealing with, because those do show up in books. Of course they would, especially in romance and those things. But I mean, literally it's political because it's about the president. It's a Secret Service. And so it's one thing to have like allegories to the political, or like, oh, this is bringing up issues that I'm having to confront. And like, I don't mind that sometimes, right? But to actually read it, we'll see how it goes. But I'm willing to let Tal Bauer take it on because I trust him, and the romances that he writes are so sweet in the middle of it that I don't mind. So there we go. Okay, next up, speaking of my Shane and Ilya, I read Future Tense, and this was actually a co-write by Alid Sadiro and Rebo 758. And this was one I was super intrigued because this was a time travel fic, but both Shane and Ilya time traveled together. So basically what happens is they are, what year does it happen in though? I don't quite remember what year they're in when it happens, but I know it's in like long game time sometime, where they're together. I think it's this right after they get married, maybe, is like when it is. I don't know when it is, but either way, they're like they're at the cabin together. They're at the cottage, They're at the cottage together, and they are married, but they're not like out yet to everyone. So maybe it's even a little bit alternative in this story even. But anyway, the point being, they're there together, and there's like, they've had a fight actually, and they're just not, their plan for the future together just isn't in sync, and they're really struggling. And then this huge like electrical storm, I think it's an electrical storm, honestly, whatever. I don't care about the method, how it happens, but I think they get like struck by lightning, or this storm hits the cottage, and they get thrown back in time to 2008, to before they meet. And they both wake up in their hotel rooms in Saskatchewan right before the first World Juniors. And they both wake up there. So this isn't just one of them time traveling and having to fix it, which I've read plenty of those before, where just one of them has to take the reins or something like that. But this time they both travel, and they are both aware of it. And so this is future tense, and they get to try to change it together. And this isn't a super long fic, so I liked that. But the way that these authors took this on, I thought was really cool. So yeah, this was a time travel fic. This was a fix-it fic where they both woke up there. And the way they chose to do things was so interesting, because here's the thing though, if they still want to be together and they still want to become the superstars that they are, they still have to like how to explain this? Like, they are in love. They know that they're husbands. They know that they love each other. Now they're back in the bodies of 17-year-olds, and they still have to kind of like play things the same for a while, which means only seeing each other once a year. Like, they still play that game, and knowing that this is the love of your life, Ilya has to go back to Russia. His dad is still alive. His brother is still calling him homophobic slurs all the time. And he isn't even like really friends with Svetlana yet, I think, in this one. And then Shane has to go back too, and like nothing is where they were at yet. And so it's that thing of like, how much do they change to make them get together sooner and have the life that they want? How much do they challenge things? And what will be the ripple effect of when they do that? And some of the things they do I really liked, including, I'll just tell you a couple of my favorite things, because I don't want to ruin the whole thing. Like I said, it's not super long. I'll tell you a couple of things I like, and one of the things that I didn't like, that is a trigger warning. And the authors said it isn't a trigger warning to them. And I strongly disagree, but it's there. It's a fic too. It's not even a real, it's a fic, but I'm going to tell you what it is just in case you read it. But things that I liked. The big one was how Ilya does Russia differently. While he is there, instead of just trying to endure it, he makes changes. He gets control of his money there much stronger. He gets his father into a safer place quicker. He makes provisions for like his brother's wife and niece sooner. He stands up to his brother more. He puts his brother in his place quicker. Like, he just asserts his power using his money quicker instead of just letting his brother walk all over him. But he also enjoys his time in Russia more. He doesn't just hide away and let them push him around. He does things for the youth in Russia. He makes Russia proud of him the way that he wants them to be, by like doing things for the people, not really caring so much like what the government thinks of him or things, but doing things for other Russia kids so that they could have opportunities like he does. Love that stuff. Also, like, so like providing opportunities for other kids, like starting things for them and not waiting too long. Also, let's see, what's another cute change that I really like? Oh, they adjust their vision from the beginning by becoming friends and becoming like besties on the ice instead of rivals on the ice, and showing that they can push each other as friends instead of as rivals. That's one of the big changes that they make, because they're like, I don't want them to be saying bad things about us. I want them to be saying like, wow, they look so good and like making it like a friendly thing together, instead of that they have to be hating at each other. That's a big. All right. Next up, I read Pray for You, Prey, by Amy Lynn. And this was the second part of the like duet that what is it even called? I don't know. Hunt for You is what I read last month, and Pray for You is this month. So this is the one about Sam and Bridget. And it's really hard to talk about Pray for You because this is a true duet. Like, you have to read Hunt for You. And so I don't want to like get too lost in the sauce with this one, because everything in this book completely spoils what happened in the first book. So I'll refer you to the weekly wrap-up where I talk about Hunt for You. And in that one, basically, there was Bridget, who was in darknet websites, or dark web, that's the word I was looking for, dark web websites, looking for a dom who was willing to do primal play and take it all the way to the end of the line, if you understand what I mean. And then we had our dom, Kane, who was looking for women who are looking for doms who do that, but he has other plans for them. So that's what I'll say. And then we have Sam, who's a priest, who Bridget also knows. And it's a hidden identity thing, which I feel like I'm kind of spoiling by saying that, because I also talked about this in a different video. But anyway, there were some pretty big reveals at the end of Hunt for You that lead to a court case, let's just say, and a marriage in Vegas. Okay, so Pray for You shows us the immediate aftermath, as well as like 6 months later when the court case is going on, and we're seeing what happens with that. So overall, I'll say I gave this duet 4 stars. I thought it was fascinating. I did think that this one, I rated them both 4 stars. There was different reasons why I knocked off stars from each one between them. Overall, this was fascinating. I thought it was a really well thought out duet. It is one of those stories that I think it did need a duet. It couldn't have all just fit into one book. I think that there were points in both of them where I thought that both of the characters were way over the top, out of line, and then something would happen and I would completely understand them again. Like, the author just led me through so much. Like, it was such a roller coaster. So I'm so impressed by this author. So even though I wasn't completely swept away by it, I really liked it and I want to read more from her. And I really like that she's written in a few different subgenres. Like I think she has a paranormal and like a romantasy as well. So I'll definitely try other stuff by her. And this was another one that I was annotating for a patron. So I'm sending it off to her this weekend, and I definitely want to read more Amy Lynn. So I gave this one 4 stars, and it's a 4 on the spice scale. And yeah, there's lots of trigger warnings. There's more trigger warnings for the first one, because in this one, everything feels consensual, whereas in the first one, you're kind of unsure what's going on because of the way the story's being told. But then, like, once you know the reveals, that book doesn't feel as scary. You know what I mean? Like, well, of course, once you know the reveals, things don't feel as scary, but you'll get what I mean if you read it. So I liked it. Okay, next up, I had an arc of Marry Me Not by Gabrielle Sands. Oh, I was hoping my physical book was going to be here in time, but it just shipped the other day, so it's not here yet. But this was book 2 in the House of Ferrero series. And I was so excited to read this. This one got postponed because Gabrielle had a baby, which is amazing. But I had forgotten a lot that happened in Be With Me, though as soon as I started reading this, I was remembering stuff. And this was the one that had the psychotic mom in it, Vita. And I have a feeling she's going to be our problem all the way through the series. That's the way this is being set up. And I kind of love that because honestly, the mafia is not the best to women. And I kind of like that she's the villain in it. But also, I just hate her so much. So the author's done a great job with that because I really hate her at the same time. But anyway, this one it starts with an arranged marriage, and the arranged marriage does happen, but it has a few twists along the way. And I don't want to like spoil everything, but how do I set this up? So this one is Cosimo, who is the oldest brother, and he is supposed to be the heir. Now, the reason why I was confused, this is important, is because at the end of the last book, the father had died. And I knew that. So when this book started and the father was alive again, because I didn't remember like where we were in the timeline and stuff, I was very confused why Gino was alive again. Well, very soon into the book, he dies again. Like they show that scene again. So then I was like, oh, okay. We rewound a little bit to show that Fabiana and Cosimo, their marriage was like they were arranged before Gino had died. So Fabiana had actually met Gino. Gino, I mean, I don't want to just call him this sweet loving guy. He is still a mafia don. But he has, but he does appear, he definitely appears gentler than his wife and was kinder to his sons. But he's also enough of an oblivious loser that he let his wife lead him around by the balls for all these years and let a lot of shit happen. So I really, by the end of this one specifically too, I was like, I don't have that much sympathy for Gino because he let all this shit happen. But anyway, that's a side note. I felt like people just kept letting Gino off the hook in this. And I'm like, guys, he let your mom do all this stuff. You realize that? And there's even more reveals that happen by the end of this one where I'm like, this guy was an oblivious asshole. And sure, he wasn't abusive the way that, Fabiana's father was abusive. And Fabiana also, I should note, is the sister to the hero from when she falls. I believe so. The one who, there's too many names. I'm so sorry. I didn't write it down. But the hero from the last book in the other series who, his father was a total asshole and he had 2 sisters. This is one of those sisters. And so this is supposed to be like a, matchup between the 2 families. And Vita has kind of helped arrange this marriage, and so Cosimo wants nothing to do with it because he doesn't trust his mama for nothing, and he shouldn't because she's crazy. But Fabiana, she just wants to do what her brother has asked of her. She, I don't know, she doesn't have any reason not to think that it will be okay. But Cosimo has had bad experiences with anyone that his mother has tried to pair him up with. They've all been spying on him, and so he doesn't trust this woman. Well, then the father dies, and we knew this in the previous one. Again, I've still not really trying to spoil anything for this book. This is like set up stuff from before. She stole the last page of Gino's will that said he wanted his oldest son to be his heir, because in the mafia, the council has to vote on who the next capo will be, or not the capo, the Don. And so technically they could skip over him and I guess put Vita in place for a while, which to me just makes no sense because her oldest son, he's like in his 30s, and she's trying to say that he should wait a couple years before, like, he's not ready yet. Whatever. She's a manipulative bitch. Like, she's horrible. But again, I also respect her a little bit too. Like, it's a weird thing. Like, I don't think she's good, but I appreciate that it's a woman doing it too. Like, it isn't just the men who help do that. Like, does that make sense? Like, I hate her, but I like that it's a woman that I can hate as well. I don't know. I'm an equal opportunist for that stuff. I don't mind it. Anyway, so, but anyway, before Gino had died, Cosimo was trying to break up the marriage because he's like, I'm not marrying someone who my mom wants me to marry. I don't trust her. And Fabiana was like, okay, we'll do it. Well, then Gino dies and Cosimo realizes what his mom is trying to do. And so he backtracks because he's like, well, if I have an alliance with your family, that will give me more backing going into this meeting with the other capos, and they'll more likely to elect me Dawn. And she's like, you were an absolute asshole to me. I don't want to marry you now, and my brother's not going to make me do it. So peace out. And he's like, wait, please, just give me some time to get this right. And she's like, no, I don't deserve to be treated the way you treated me, because he was a real jerk to her. He was a real jerk. So he has to do a bit of groveling, a bit of begging, and finally they agree to a short-term marriage, at least until he can get one up on his mom, and then he will annul the marriage from her and let her be on her way. So that is their setup, and they're trying to outmaneuver her mom, and they just keep revealing things that she's done. So I'll leave it there. There's still a lot in the story besides that, but like, so it's one of those, like, it was supposed to be an arranged marriage, then he tries to get out of it, but then he still needs her. So now they come into it with a bit more equal ground type of thing. But yeah, there was some reveals about more stuff that Vita, like, there's so much that Vita has done, but like, she's still not gone in this book. So I think she's going to be the villainess for this whole series. And, you know, it's that thing too, where, like I said, I hate this bitch, but also this is what the mafia is like what power she takes for herself. Like, I respect it at the same time, because we've seen men in this world do it too. But the one piece that I don't ever forgive is what she did to the brothers. Like, that's the whole point, is she tortured these boys, you know. I'm not saying she's just misunderstood. No, she used cigarettes to burn him. She gaslight one of the other boys. She made them feel awful about themselves. Like, again, she did just as bad as a man would do to, like, manipulate the son. So she doesn't just get a pass just because, like, I respect that she's willing to do what she's got to do. Like, no, she's an awful person. I just mean I appreciate being able to hate on a woman too. Equal opportunity, right? But it's the world that made her, so they cannot, you know, the mafia world only has themselves to blame when she's willing to play just as dirty as them, when you don't offer any other options for women. But she did some pretty horrible things, so there you go. But yeah, I give this one 4 stars as well, and it was a 3 on the spice scale. Yeah, it was a pretty, I will be honest, I was feeling pretty for pretty much everything this week. It was just how I was feeling. Okay, next up, I finally had an audiobook. I got Zone by Tia Louise. This one was a duet narration by Troy Duran and Willa James. This is the 4th book in the New Bradfords, and this one is Knox and Melody. And I was very excited for this one. This one is a football romance. Finally got some football in here. And in fact, it's Saints football. So that was great. New Orleans here. I was a little sad to leave the hockey house in LA, but that's great. Glad. And I immediately remembered that this one was one. I was confused though, because the author did a little thing where we started it in a completely different situation than where we ended the last one. And because I listened to so many books, I was like, huh? I thought we ended the last book with Knox finding out he was a dad. Like, it ended with him at the family booth after a game with a social worker bringing a baby to him saying the mother had died. Here's your baby daughter. And then we start with him having we start this one off with this woman driving an Uber, and Knox gets in the Uber and she ends up going the wrong way, and he ends up screaming at her, being super rude to her in the Uber. And she actually has a podcast with her friend, a sports podcast. Her father was actually a football player, and she actually played football too. And she has a football podcast. And so after he's rude to her in the Uber, she knows who it was she gave a ride to. She gets pretty snarky about him on her podcast, and it does really well. So she never wanted to be a catty person on her podcast, but after he's an asshole to her, she's like, you know what? You shouldn't be rude. And so she starts cutting up his game, which are all fair critiques, but she does put a little extra spice into her critique of him, giving him the extra needling. And yeah, it's pretty delicious. So that begins, and he has no idea what he did to piss this person off until there ends up being a situation where he's able to meet her, and she explains who he was and why he was a jerk to her. And she's like, I'm not really trying to be a jerk to you, but I'm saying fair critiques, and my podcast is doing well, so you can handle it. And he actually ends up being a good sport, because he's like, yeah, I was being a jerk that night. I'm sorry, but how about you give me those critiques before the podcast? I could actually use that advice. And she's like, no, I'm not gonna undercut my podcast to make things easier for you. You can hear my critiques with everybody else. But he keeps trying to meet up with her. But then we finally get to the point where the baby arrives, which I'll admit, happens a good ways into the book, which I don't know. I didn't really like that part of it. And then the second part is that I still am kind of confused. Now, to be honest, as I have mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you skip that part, that's fine. I was blabbering a lot. I was helping my friend in her classroom this week, and I was listening to this while I was folding papers for her. I was making sketchbooks. I do this every year because she's an art teacher, and I make the sketchbooks for her kiddos. I don't know that this kid, there's some stuff about the baby girl and where she comes from and all these things that I still don't understand, even having finished the book. But she shows up real late into the story. The mom has died of cancer and left the baby to Knox, which would be a hell of a thing. But I mean, the man's got a lot of family who loves him, people willing to help. And then we have Melody, who has been kind of part of his life now for a while, and now he's a dad. So it was really cute. I do love the trope of he's a single dad, but it's not her baby, a surprise baby, but not her baby in the story. I really like that trope. Kat Singleton recently had one of those. Melanie Harlow has one like that. I really like that trope. So that's a good one. But yeah, there was just a few things about this one that the pacing was a bit weird. And then, yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, I like that it was football. I like the podcast part of it. I liked that their banter and camaraderie. But yeah, I thought the pacing was a bit off. I thought how the baby girl arrives, and then there's some other technicality stuff with it that I was this isn't how this would work. What are we doing? That just felt weird. And I mean, I'm happy the baby ends up with him and his family, but I was just like, this is weird for this child. So anyway, so yeah, I gave this one 4 stars, and it was a 3 on the spice scale. And finally, to round this off, I did have one more fanfic, and this one was called, I'm gonna laugh, sorry. This one's called Stay, with like 4 A's, by Luna at the Zoo. And this one's very simple. It's only 100 pages long, and it is a tuna melt fix-it, is how it's kind of said. So what if, instead of Shane running away, what if he, after the tuna melt and after the frauding at the on the couch, he had a panic attack, but he had a panic attack in the bathroom, and Ilya helped him calm down, and Shane stayed and watched trashy reality TV with Ilya, and they worked it out, and then they kept seeing each other after that instead. So that was it. That was all, and it was perfect. It was a nice comfy read that I finished off the week with. So yeah, it was a great one. I loved it. It was cute. And I'll have links to all these books down below that I talked about, so feel free to snag a copy or a link if it's a fic. I still have people sometimes who ask, like, oh, this isn't on Amazon, and it's one of the fics that I've talked about. You cannot buy these fics anywhere, but you can read them for free. You can read them on AO3, an archive of our own, and I always put the link down below. So you can go read them on the website, or you can download it and send it to your Kindle or tablet or anything like that. So thank you so much for watching. And again, welcome to Tatiana. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. And if you are a fated friend, the hangout is tonight at 7 p.m. on my channel. Yeah, that's going to be fun. So thank you so much for watching, friends, and I'll see you next time.